Why, hello there, old sports. Recently, I've been going through another Five Nights at Freddy's phase, where I get super duper interested in the FNaF series again for a few months, or at least more interested than I usually am, and part of this ritual for me is to watch a bunch of various FNaF theory videos that have come out since my last FNaF phase. Now, one of these theory videos got me thinking about something, and I'll be completely honest and say that I cannot find the theory, and I do not remember what it was called, but I think what it was saying isn't as important as what it got me thinking. One throwaway line of the video was a part where the publisher said something along the lines of, "Now I do think this is an interesting idea, and it does have some strong evidence, but this goes against the popular idea of the GoldenDuo theory, so that was one of the reasons I let it go." Now, again, I don't really remember what the greater context of this was, and what the general video is even about. I think it was about FNaF 6, but I don't quite remember. But regardless, this got me thinking about a lot. It got me thinking about how a few specific FNaF theories that fans tend to take for granted, and about the way FNaF theorists theorize in the first place. Because if I want to be a nerdy idiot, and I do, to simplify a complex topic down quite a bit, scientific theories aren't meant to be proven right, as much as they are meant to be proven wrong. Those that can't, or have minimal issues, are considered the best and the strongest theories. Overall, I guess my point is that theories are meant to be attacked, so please don't assume I'm using any malicious intention here. FNaF theorists, and game theorizing in general, tend to get attached to theories, and then they end up having a hard time letting them go, even if a less fallible idea comes along, or if new holes get poked in the older ones, due to either just the passage of time, or new information that we learn. For example, MatPat seemed to get really attached to the Gregory is a robot theory around the time of Security Breach, and it took a lot of time for them to let it go, even after people tore it apart relentlessly. Anyways, let's hopefully not make too many people angry, and discuss, and poke holes in GoldenDuo. But before we do any of that, I just want to say a few things real quick. First of all, I do not mean any ill will or hate towards any theories I discuss, or people who like them. I do not think you are a bad person, or stupid or anything, for liking or loving or believing in a theory that I think is incorrect. And the thing is, I really like GoldenDuo. I want it to be true. I think it would be very interesting if it was true. I just feel like it would be dishonest of me, if anything, to go on and say that I think it's good just because I like it, or it's true just because I like it and I think it's a good idea. I genuinely would not even be making this video if I didn't believe this theory has a lot of holes and problems with it. My aim with this video is mostly meant to just start discussions in the theory community and to try to challenge our current ideas to make sure if they still hold up, as I think that's an important part of theorizing in general. We should be able to look back at old ideas that we think are true because they've been around so long, and they should be able to hold up. Also, I'll be using footage from a recent FNaF World Refresh Nuzlocke I attempted as B-roll footage, and if you'd like to know how that whole experience went, I made a video about it, and I'd be very grateful if you checked it out after this video. It will be in the card in the corner, as well as in the outro and description. Anyways, with all that being said, let's finally begin the video properly. Now, for those who don't know, GoldenDuo, or as it's much more rarely known as, GoldenBoth, is the nickname for a theory that proposes that multiple spirits are inside of and possessing the Golden Freddy suit, or Fredbear suit. Now, to be more specific, under this theory, those two spirits aren't just any two random dead souls, but specifically the bite victim, who died from injuries caused by the Big Bite, aka the Bite of 83, aka not
the Bite of 87?
After being shoved in the jaw of Fredbear and later dying in a hospital. And Cassidy, who is supposed to be the identity of the fifth victim of the missing children's incident, who was the previous only suspected soul within Golden Freddy. Before this theory became popular, of course. Now, funnily enough, before making this video, like I said in the previous section, I actually both really believed in and loved this specific theory. Now, while I still do love the theory a lot, and feel like it has a lot of narrative potential, and it would be the way I would want the series to go, I just don't feel like the evidence holds up currently. And who knows, maybe it never did. Because as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, after hearing the idea that someone had an issue with a theory because of the existence of GoldenDuo, I decided to sit down and actually look into the evidence for GoldenDuo to make sure it holds up. And I was kinda disappointed with what I found, to be honest. Now, I know the FNaF theory wiki has some problems, and is by no means the end-all be-all of FNaF theory discussion. However, I'd just like to use it as a jumping off point, and as a place I can list pieces of evidence to explore. So let's look at both the evidence for, and the problems against, this theory. Then obviously once we've looked at some evidence and problems for the theory, we can try to come to some more conclusions, because I don't think coming to a conclusion and then trying to justify it is very good reasoning. You should look at the reasons and then draw a conclusion from there. And I only point that out because I know some people in the theorizing community tend to come up with a conclusion and work backwards instead of the other way around. And again, that kind of frustrates me. But I digress. Point of evidence 1. Both Golden Cassidy and Golden Victim have enough reliable evidence for both to be the case in a certain way. Okay, now immediately getting off to a bad start. Just because two theories are reasonable by themselves, doesn't mean that a combination of them is necessarily true. But on top of that, both of the mentioned theories aren't equally as solid. Golden Cassidy, which proposes that Cassidy haunts Golden Freddy, has more points of evidence in its favor than problems against it. Golden Victim not only has roughly the same amount of problems with it as evidence for it, but lots of the pieces of evidence people have brought up have become more and more flawed as time has gone on. And I will go more into this later, how I feel like the idea that Golden Freddy is haunted by the bite victim is kind of flawed, but again, like I just said, later. Now, I mentioned earlier, FNaF theorizing has a problem with not checking to see if old evidence still holds up, so I don't really blame people for still fully believing in Golden Victim. But even if Golden Victim is fully solid, there are still other, or just as, or even more solid ideas of what happens to the bite victim post-nibble. Theories like Shatter Victim, and other theories bring up ideas that have problems, yes, but some of those others even have better points than Golden Victim. Now, like I just said, lots of my issues with Golden Victim will come up later under the duo, so I'll elaborate more as they come up. Point of evidence 2. In the survival logbook, there is a dialogue between what seems to be two separate entities, one communicating via faded writing, and the other responding with altered text. This seems to mimic the idea of GoldenDuo, as in, two spirits contained within an item communicating with each other. Okay, now this seems to be some flawed reasoning, right? First of all, it's debated at all who the two entities in the logbook are. Second of all, I feel like if both Cassidy and the bite victim were in Golden Freddy, they wouldn't need to communicate through the logbook, right? We know from the Stitch Wraith that if multiple spirits are in one vessel, they can communicate freely. And we also know from the movies that spirits in different vessels can communicate freely as well. I feel like the logbook exists more as a framing device for our case as the audience, rather than saying because two things in the logbook can talk means in a different vessel and is inhabited by those same two. I just feel like that reasoning is kind of confusing. Point of evidence 3. In the Fazbear Fright stories, Andrew and Jake possess an endoskeleton called the Stitch Wraith, confirming that multiple souls can possess an animatronic. Jake and Andrew both also share similarities with what is commonly theorized about Cassidy and the bite victim. Okay, yes. The fact Andrew and Jake possess the Stitch Wraith does confirm that vessels can contain multiple spirits. But this has also been a thing established to be true by Ennard. Now, both Ennard and the Stitch Wraith share something in common that Golden Freddy does not. The other multi-spirit vessels are physically constructed of pieces of other already haunted objects that were only haunted by one thing. Golden Freddy is one suit that was made to be one suit. Second of all, this can't even be a parallel to the GoldenDuo, because the Stitch Wraith isn't even made of 2 spirits in one vessel, but rather 4. Because I don't know if you remember, but one of the major twists of the Stitch Wraith stingers is that both William Afton and Eleanor are attached to the Stitch Wraith in some capacity. So unless we learn that both a serial killer and an agony monster are in Golden Freddy, I feel like this point is worthless. Point of evidence 4. In the FNaF 3 bad ending, although Golden Freddy only has one light in their head, light can be seen shining through both eye holes. This has been interpreted to mean that Golden Freddy has 2 spirits. Light is a visible electromagnetic radiation that can be perceived by the human eye. Visible light spans the visible spectrum and is usually defined as having wavelengths in the range of 400 to 700 nanometers, corresponding to frequencies of 750 to 400 terahertz. To put it more simply, yeah, of course the light is shining through both eye holes. All of the heads minus Foxy have the light shining through both sockets. Foxy only does it because he has an eye patch. That's how f***ing light works! Point of evidence 5. The "it's me" hallucinations associated with Golden Freddy in FNaF 1 could be the bite victim / Cassidy trying to clarify who is speaking, which could also be a result of 2 spirits being present. Again, I hope I'm not being stupid and missing something, but this doesn't mean anything to me. As shown in the week before, the phrase "it's me" doesn't seem to be solely associated with Golden Freddy anymore. Some of the MCI spirits within the Core 4 mascots use the phrase, as well as another woman named Bronwyn who is killed by Bonnie and stuffed into a Freddy suit. The phrase seems like it's more of a way for the spirits to ground themselves and hold on to their humanity and consciousness instead of getting lost in their own agony. But that's just my thoughts. And I guess my main problem with this point is that it kind of goes back to the main point of this video, that people kind of just hold on to old ideas about theories without ever looking back to check if they still make sense. Point of evidence 6. In the FNaF World Halloween update, there are 6 gravestones near the purple guy, while 1 grave is shown near Fredbear, away from the other 6. These gravestones are interpreted as representing the 6 graves shown in the Lore Keeper ending of FNaF 6, belonging to the missing children and Charlie, all victims of William Afton. However, the 7th grave is unaccounted for, and under the idea that Golden Freddy is Fredbear, this could possibly hinting that Fredbear has more than one spirit. This might be a simple visual clue at Afton having 6 victims, MCI and Charlie, while the 7th one is near Fredbear because he died to Fredbear, rather than Fredbear having 2 souls. I'd say this is the stupidest point, but that would be ignoring the fact that I had to explain what light is. Hell, the end of this point even debunks itself. If this was supposed to be evidence for GoldenDuo, you think there would be 2 graves near Fredbear, but that is not the case. So those are 6 points listed on the wiki, and 2 of them were so wrong it's practically self-explanatory. Now while the other 4 points do have issues, there's issues with even points about theories that are hard confirmed. So giving this theory the benefit of the doubt, that could be an issue with the wiki and how it was formatted. After all, these are only 6 pieces of evidence for the theory. There could be more I'm missing. But you can suggest a theory with any piece of flawed evidence. Let's see what problems the story has and how stable they are. Actually, wait, I missed a point of evidence that wasn't on the wiki. In the week before, one of the bad endings involves Ralph listening to a recording of the Bite of 83 on a phone, before hanging up and getting crunched by what is presumably Golden Freddy. Now, I've seen some people say this is supposed to be hinting at GoldenDuo, but after some consideration, I don't think that's the case. But I'll get into that in a bit. However, I do want to point out that this scene is written in a very confusing way. The scene starts by mentioning a boy crying, which is supposed to be the bite victim, but after hanging up the phone, the crying is stated to be from a child, which I think is weird because it should say the boy, so it almost implies it's a different kid crying, but I don't know, because this could be just a writing error. Problem 1. Golden Freddy's catchphrase, "It's me," uses the singular pronoun, me, which could imply a single identity. Molten Freddy also uses singular pronouns despite having multiple personalities within it, presumably due to being one personality dominating. This could be true for Golden Freddy as well. Okay, as I mentioned in the evidence section, More recent material like the week before has moved towards the idea that "it's me" is a more general phrase used by multiple spirits, not just Golden Freddy. Hell, even back in FNaF 1, you could see the phrase "it's me" along with hallucinations that feature Bonnie and Freddy, and on the Pirate Cove sign, which is obviously associated with Foxy. Also, with the Funtime crew, they seem to have a leader who speaks for them. At first, it was Elizabeth before she got kicked out and was replaced by the spirit within Funtime Freddy. And in the Stitch Wraith, Eleanor and William were keeping themselves hidden when they were in the Wraith, so Andrew and Jake seemed to be mostly working together to pilot the vessel together. So I think the phrase "it's me" doesn't really prove or disprove anything. It's kinda just there. Everyone uses it. Problem 2. The light in Golden Freddy's head could just be one of the lights spreading across the rest of his head, having in mind that that is the main source of light, and it's noticeably on the right. This effect can also partially be seen in Chica, Bonnie, and Freddy's heads. In The End, Golden Freddy's head in the ending fades out entirely, not partially. If 2 souls inhabited the suit, one soul leaving should only have partially turned it off after Happiest Day. Okay, thank God even the wiki realizes how dumb this point was. Also, maybe the light seems like it's glowing in both eyes more prominently, because the Golden Freddy head is out of the spotlight the other heads are in, thus making the eye light stand out more. Problem 3. It is unclear why Cassidy would use the logbook instead of talking to Bite Victim in Golden Freddy, similar to how Jake and Andrew talk within the Stitch Wraith. I already mentioned this in the evidence section. Like the problem proposes, they can talk to each other just fine, and as seen in the movies and in the books, novels section, there's this weird, purgatory state that they can all talk to each other in. So, for the movies, that would be the woods, in the books, that would just be Freddy's. So, the spirits can communicate with each other through multiple ways. So, again, if they were in the logbook, that would be something, but it doesn't make sense that because they're in the logbook, that means GoldenDuo is correct. Problem 4. In the final Follow Me minigame, there are 5 children spirits, each corresponding to one of the original 5 possessed animatronics: Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy. There is no 6th spirit present, even though Bite Victim's spirit should be close by. Exactly. Even if we were playing as the Bite Victim in this moment, which we're not, the problem would then be that one of the MCI spirits is missing. If Scott wanted, he could have just added another sprite to the wall of ghosts blocking William's way out of the safe room. Would that have caused confusion in the moment? Yes. But would have people eventually put together that, oh, maybe there's 2 spirits in Golden Freddy, or there's another spirit, yada yada yada. He didn't choose to do it then, so either that wasn't the intention then, or it's not the intention now. Problem 5. There are numerous instances of Golden Freddy being represented by one spirit in groups of William Afton's victims. At the end of FNaF 6, in the graveyard ending, there are only 6 gravestones meant to show the 5 MCI kids and Charlie, but then again, this could just mean to show that these are William's victims, when the Bite victim's death was an accident. The Happiest Day minigame shows 6 spirits involved in the final party, one for the original 5, and then the puppet. If there are supposed to be 2 spirits in Golden Freddy, there'd be 2 sprites to show that, and one of them would either be with the other kids, or one of them would also be with the other Golden Freddy child on that side of the table. Finally, in other franchise universes like the novels and movies, there's only 5 kids in general, and only 1 spirit for Golden Freddy. Problem 6. It is questionable whether the Stitch Wraith is a parallel of Golden Freddy, as Golden Freddy also exists in the Frights continuity. Yeah, on top of the issues on using the Stitch Wraith as a parallel that I brought up earlier, Golden Freddy already exists as a haunted suit in the Fright books. Also, at the end of that story, when looking inside the suit for his friend's corpse, the main character only sees a child with black curly hair. This not only states that there's only 1 spirit, but that it's probably Cassidy specifically. Now, I think that the series is trying to imply that Cassidy is the sole spirit in Golden Freddy in general, but I'll elaborate more on that later. And since I just finished all the problems listed on the wiki, that means later is now. Okay, so if I don't think GoldenDuo is an accurate theory, despite liking the core idea behind it, what do I think is the canon or intended story? Well, I'm going to be fully honest and say that I'm not sure, but I have a few ideas. Okay, first of all, I think it's very clear that Cassidy, or the 5th missing children's incident victim, is connected to and haunting Golden Freddy. But where does that leave the bite victim? Because it's undeniable that the bite victim is connected to Golden Freddy, even if it's just because he died in Fredbear's jaws. But that's the thing. I don't think that the bite victim is actually supposed to be haunting Golden Freddy, even if there's supposed to be connections, or he's supposed to invoke imagery about Golden Freddy. In the novels, William explains that the spirit follows the flesh, and this is shown in the game as well. The animatronics that most embody the spirit within them are Springtrap and Baby, who both died directly in their suits. The MCI have been stated to be stuffed in the suits to hide the bodies, meaning they were dead before being in the suits. Charlie also died within the marionette's arms, thus fusing her more with her vessel. Now, I state all this to preface the fact that the bite victim didn't even die in the same building related to his incident. We all know that he died in a hospital due to the flatline in the Night 6 cutscene, so we don't even know if the bite victim was close enough to Golden Freddy to haunt it. Personally, I think it would make more sense that the bite victim doesn't end up haunting any specific mascot, but rather the world of FNaF, or the timeline itself, or just the idea of Freddy's/Fredbears. From a narrative sense, maybe bite victim isn't literally physically haunting anything, but rather metaphorically haunting the series, hanging over it like a ghost. Yes, his spirit is probably still around as shown in the logbook, but I think lots of things that people think are him are more meant to parallel rather than actually be him, or they're supposed to invoke imagery of him without actually being him. William wanted to put him back together in an attempt to unlock the key to immortality for his own means, so I think it would be more satisfying if he failed to bring him back in a way like the others. But that's just me. Honestly, my view is that the bite victim is in a state somewhere between memory victim and shatter victim, if you know what those theories are. But I feel like that's starting to get outside of the scope of this video, so if you want me to make a video more in depth about what I think happened to good old bite victim, and this video gets enough support, I'll definitely do it. Because I think there are characters like Nightmare, for example, that are meant to represent the crying child/bite victim. But the thing is, you wouldn't say the bite victim is haunting Nightmare because Nightmare doesn't physically exist. Personally, if anything, I think Michael sees Nightmare Fredbear as an embodiment of his guilt over the event itself, while Nightmare is the guilt over the consequences, i.e. the crying child bite victim's death. Because we can only actually face Nightmare after learning the bite victim died. But again, I'm kind of rambling, and I feel like that's kind of getting outside the scope of this video, so I digress. I'd like to thank you all for your time today, and for watching this video. Your time and care mean the world to me. I'd also like to thank my Patreon members, Golden1 and Somebody, and my YouTube channel members, Wally73, Sven Biscuit, and Amarin98, for their financial support. Like I said, if you guys really like this video, I might make a follow-up video for this, but I'm only going to do that if this video gets 10,000 views, so that's up to the algorithm, I guess, but I won't hold my breath, mostly because that'd end badly. Regardless, I'm very grateful for your support. Please have a good day, or a good Easter if you celebrate that when this video comes out. Regardless, I'll see you on the flip side.